Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. We are delighted to have you here for our free weekly Q&A to answer your toughest job search questions. Thank you for joining us. My name is Shira Lotzar. I am an association recruiter. I'm a career coach, and I do resume writing and LinkedIn profiles and help folks with their branding. I'm also the co-founder and volunteer of boomerworks.org, and we are a volunteer-based nonprofit helping professionals age 50 plus to re-career into self-employment. So if you're interested in pursuing that kind of income stream, feel free to reach out to us at boomerworks.org. Love to introduce our guest experts today, our team of peeps. Julien Bois is an executive recruiter in accounting and finance with Justin Bradley. So if you're in accounting and finance sector, Julian's your guy. Corliss Jackson is a career coach, and she specializes in helping people to get into the federal government. Hi, Corliss. KiKi L'Italien is a consultant, and she is an expert in video imaging and all things social media. So Kiki's your girl for all things videos. And Mike Robinson is a career coach who actually was a former recruiter in government contracting and high tech. So he's your GovCon guy. So here is how we're going to do our format today. So first of all, please remain muted when you're in the main room and post your questions in chat. We are going to begin with a 5-minute breakout room to identify your group's top questions. So you'll get into a small group and you'll kind of talk to each other about what your top question is, and then assign a scribe, and that person can go ahead and put your question into the chat box when we're done. Once we come back, we're going to hear 2 power tips from 2 of our experts. So today that'll be KiKi and Corliss. And then we'll go into an open Q&A first of all with an advanced question, but then an open Q&A for everyone, right? At the end of it, at 10 o'clock, we're going to have a 15-minute speed networking breakout session, which for those of you who've attended, we've just been hearing rave reviews. People are really loving the connections and that they're making with folks offline. I've been hearing sort of fruit that's come out of some of those meetings. So please, if you have the time, please, we encourage you to stick around for that. And we have a new feature, a power networking spreadsheet. So if you go ahead and grab this URL, I'll put it in the chat box as well. It's just a little Excel spreadsheet where you can put your contact information, what kind of job you're looking for, your email, your LinkedIn profile, so that you guys can connect with each other. And if you would like a recording of today's session, here's the link for that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and do our speed networking. We're going to have our initial breakout room. So give me just a minute here, and we're going to put everybody into these rooms for 5 minutes. Okay, so when you see the blue join button, please click on that, and you'll go ahead and network with your colleagues for a few minutes to figure out your top question. It's just you and me.
It's just you and me. Yay! So I have my my slide ready to go. I'm so excited.
Cool.
And then I'll go ahead and moderate, right, for questions in the chat.
Oh yeah, the normal thing.
Okay.
Hey Leanne, we're in breakout rooms now, so you should see a join button. You can go in and just do a few minutes of networking to find your top question. Hey Barbara, we just entered networking rooms to figure out your top questions, so feel free to hit your join button.
Yay.
Yay.
Boy, look at this. You've got this.
I know, I'm like into the breakout room.
I know, it's so awesome. You know, as you were going through the beginning, I was realizing that I had meant to say something earlier, but if you what I could do is if I should get a copy of this, and then I can have those links where when you're talking, I can put them over into the chat.
Let's do it.
That way it's easier.
Thank you.
Yeah, you don't have to push all the buttons. Yeah.
All right, what I'm going to do is right now, Well, actually, I should do it for everybody because I told them I would. So I'm going to put it in the chat box here.
Cool.
Okay, so if you just want to grab those.
Yeah. And then next time we go through this, then I can.
Right.
I had thought about that before and then forgot to say anything. And
yep.
But I'm here to help.
Thank you.
Help. Yeah.
There's this question that someone asked, do you have an opinion of the use of paid referrals? In this case, candidates pay employees for extra consideration at highly desired companies. I've never heard of that in my life. I know the employers pay, you know, can pay employee referrals, but I've never heard of this. So, you know.
That's very strange.
Isn't that odd?
But I can understand, like, I bet that happens at places like Google and Amazon and stuff where, you know, but I never even thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I don't know how I even feel about that, frankly.
Well, I think that, you know, like as a high, like I understand why you want your employees to be finding other good candidates, but that to me, that seems like
exactly
you're taking all of the benefit of that out. Like,
yeah. No, but this would be where, no, but this almost seems like it's the other way around. It's the employee, like the job seeker,
right?
Somebody internally, but I don't know if that would be even sanctioned by the employer.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's ethical. I don't
know. I don't either. It doesn't feel
I don't
ethical.
think it's ethical. And I think that, like, I think that the hiring manager, they want those recommendations from employees internally because they trust them,
right.
You know?
Right. Hey, Michael, we're in the breakout rooms to do the top question. I don't think you've been joining those recently, right?
No. But what I meant, if you have a chance, I'm really looking for the name of the person that does the federal work. You know,
Corliss. Yeah, she's on the call.
Is she on the call? Yeah.
She is on the call.
Yeah, I'd like to get her contact information. I should have gotten it the last time, but I didn't. Yeah. I find these very interesting, though. The questions are, you know, I believe in this thing of you just have to spend a little time learning about other people, you know, so it's a great thing. And KiKi, you're back this week, huh?
I am. I'm so excited to be back. I can't, you know, I actually really missed it when I wasn't here last Friday. And so
we missed you too.
Like, I know, it was so sad. It's become kind of I look forward to it. So
how's that young lady of yours?
Oh, she's good. She's doing so well. Margot, she's so in love with dance, but I cannot believe how fast she's growing. I mean, you know, 12 going on 30. It's just the time has just, you know, but she's still a little girl, you know, and it's that weird age where she is still a little girl, but she's almost my height. Like and I'm tall, you know, so like it doesn't feel, it's so weird because I'm like, come here, you know, and like, but she's taller. It's,
They grow up overnight, so enjoy it.
Yeah, I am. I'm really savoring every moment.
I have a niece who is in the New York City School for the Arts, and they deal with the New York Ballet. She's into it big time.
Oh, Margot would love to find out more about that.
Yeah, I'll send you some information on it. It's really pretty spectacular.
All right. Well, everybody's back. So I hope you had a good few minutes of some networking and figuring out your top questions. So whoever the scribe is for your group, go ahead and feel free to start chatting in the chat box with your question. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and do our power tips. So KiKi is going to do our first one. She's going to talk about the best camera angle for video interviews. Who knew that was actually a thing, but apparently it is. So KiKi, take it away.
Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen right here. We are going to talk a little bit about camera angle and lighting today, because if you look in the backgrounds right now, you're going to notice that we have a wide variety of different camera angles. And the reason that you need to think about this is not just because we want to look thinner, that we want to look fantastic, and that's all part of it too, right? But that we want people to be able to see us well, And when we're talking, the whole point is that we're supposed to be making a better connection. And so if the camera angle isn't really optimally placed, right? If you don't have a good camera angle, then it can be distracting. It can actually give a feeling of you looking down on someone, or maybe that you look a little more diminutive than you want to. And so all of these subtle nonverbal things communicate so much when you're having these very important conversations. And so what I wanted to do with you today is just point out a few different elements that you need to be aware of when you're positioning your camera. Now, right now, many of you may have just your built-in cameras, and that's totally fine because you can do all kinds of things. I'm sure you've practiced and played around with them, like moving things around, elevating them on books. You can get stands that will move your computer around so that that camera hits at a better angle. But some general good practice is just to have your camera pointed so that it is aimed at right around here on your forehead, not quite right at the eyes, but a little bit above the eyes, so that it has just a tiny hair above eye level. And then you also want to have a little bit of headspace. And actually, I don't have quite enough headspace at the top. You want to have a little bit of headspace between the top of your head and the frame that you're working with within, platforms like Zoom. Now, when we're looking at this example here, this is an example of what not to do. And this was taken from a public discussion. And this poor guy, he's got a lot going for him, I'm sure, in life. But his lighting was off and his camera angle was off. And so here's a good clue that you might need to adjust your camera angle. And I'm not pointing anyone out on this call right now. But if you look in the background, if you can see the top of your ceiling, that's a hint that the camera is actually positioned looking up and that it's catching those angles of your room. Now, that's not always the case because some of us have different sizes of rooms that we're in. But it's a good clue that if you look at that and you see the tops of your walls meeting the ceiling, that's usually a good sign that it's angled up and that you might need to reposition. That also means that you might want to elevate your laptop a little bit as well. When you are positioning your camera, you also want to make sure that you're taking into account everything that is in the background and everything that's around you. All of these give trust cues, visual cues, as to whether, who you are is in alignment with what's around you, and what your resume or your CV is saying about you aligns with what's around you as well. So if you seem like you're very detail oriented and you're really pushing forward, that you're the kind of person that pays attention to every little thing, but it's chaos all around you, that's a sign that is going to say non-verbally that people might want to take a closer look and re-examine whether you really are who you say you are. And so some of these things, we need to be aware of. They can seem very superficial, but they make a huge amount of difference. And so playing around a little bit with the camera angle to see. Now you see, if I aim mine up, I'm doing something similar to what this guy's doing in our example, where I'm at the bottom of the camera. You see the top of my ceiling. And what does this do to your perception of me? Does it seem like you're right, I'm shorter, I'm looking, and it kind of diminishes me? Do I look like I'm as pulled together as I should be? No, there's something wrong here. It's like, do I understand, is there something wrong with my setup? Do I understand technology? There's all kinds of questions that come into play. And so just simply playing around with your camera angle can do an amazing amount, because what you're doing is you're cutting out all kinds of noise, including visual noise, and you're aligning your brand visually with who you say you are, who you're presenting yourself to be, to the person who's going to hopefully hire you. So that's my tip.
Yay, thank you, KiKi. So there was one question that came up in the chat about what you were saying, and the question was, should there be should we have a blank background, or is it okay to have pictures?
Oh, it's totally fine to have pictures. You know, one thing that you just want to be aware that anything that's in the background is going to be captured in someone's overall perception of you. So even if you think that you need to set up, and a lot of us have been thinking about this, obviously this year, but even if you identify one place that you're managing everything that's in your background, even if the rest is crazy, you might want to limit how many personal details you share in the background, just because you don't want that to accidentally turn someone off from getting to know you better. And a good example that I like to bring up is, you know, I have a really good friend who's very much into craft beer. It has nothing to do with his profession, but he loves it. He thinks it's great, and he's very proud of this aspect of himself. Now, for somebody else who loves craft beer, seeing all of the bottles lined up in the background would look really cool. It'd be like that's fantastic. But for people who look down upon something like that, that's probably a personal aspect that he doesn't want in his background, because that could actually hurt what they think about him. And so if you have personal items in the background, it can be very beneficial. Just be aware that that can actually also hurt you. So be conscious of the things that you put in the back. I don't know a lot of people who have things against reading, so you're probably lucky with books, you know, that probably says something good about you. Patterns are good because people look at patterns and they connect that with safety. So if you have a series of things, a series of colors, or a series of similar frames in the background, that actually subtly, subconsciously communicates a sense of trust and safety, because we believe in patterns and we think we understand what's going to happen next. And so that makes people feel more secure when they're working with you.
And is a blank background a good thing, or is it a bad thing?
A blank background is called a hostage video when you're talking about video production. So you want to be very careful. You know, it looks like hostage, like where was this taken? Can we tell from the lighting if they're in, you know, some other country? You don't want to look like you've been taken hostage. So really try to warm it up. And what I encourage people to do in that case is, you know, bring in a plant, this happens in hotels, by the way, all the time. Back when I used to travel a lot more for my job, pre-COVID, I would have to like rearrange things so that there was a little warmth in the background and it didn't look like just a generic hotel background. But you can do it. Just move things into the shot and think almost like a video producer would do, so that you have a little bit of warmth and humanity into your background, and it doesn't look like, you know, you're hiding where you're coming from.
Good. Thank you, KiKi. Very rich. Appreciate that. All right. So Corliss is going to now talk about the difference between private and public center applications. Public sector.
KiKi, how do I look?
You look fantastic. Look at that.
I'm here adjusting. Good morning, everyone. Just want to put in a couple words here, a little plug for the federal government as well. Government can be a really good choice for folks. It can be a really good choice now. So there's a lot of dollars moving to the federal sector, through the federal sector because of COVID. And it doesn't just mean healthcare dollars. The agencies get money, the money has to be managed. So they look for budget and financial folks. And I think in my little small group, we had 3 out of 4 folks were in the financial arena. They also look for program managers who have to manage the programs. They look for all of the back office support in terms of IT and all of those, you know, things that are needed and functions that are needed. So it can be a good choice because the government they hire in all fields. So everything that you can find in the private sector, you can actually find in the public sector. Doesn't mean there's always a ton of jobs, but there are jobs in all walks of life. So that's a great thing. The challenge can be that the process is super different. It's very different than anything you've probably heard of or thought of in the corporate sector. So what I like to tell people is that in the corporate sector, usually your first step is networking. And then you have a great package, interview, you know, whatever comes next. The first step is always the networking. In the federal sector, the first step really is your package. Now, you can network all you want, but if you don't submit a package, you're not going to be considered. So sometimes those things go hand in hand. However, the first order of business is definitely your package. The other challenge that a lot of people find is that it can take a very long time to land a federal position. So anywhere from 2 to 3 months would be super, super quick. And it can take 12 or more months just to get through the entire process. So what happens is the HR folks actually take a look at your package, and they're looking for a couple things. And once they see what they want to see, they move you forward to the hiring manager, and that hiring manager will usually interview you. And you need to work with KiKi on how to interview virtually. And then what they do is they make a decision, and they go through a process of looking at your background. And some people might have some things that are going on in their background that they're a little bit fearful about in terms of moving forward with the federal position, but they're really not looking for somebody who had trouble paying bills because maybe you went through a divorce, or maybe you were laid off, or maybe you had a short sale on a home because the market crashed, or bankruptcy. They're looking for folks who are, on Dateline or 60 Minutes, and they're in the cul-de-sac of your neighborhood and you didn't know they were selling secrets to other countries. That's who they're looking for. They're not looking for you or I, or we wouldn't actually have anybody working in the federal government, because who has, a perfect track record. So don't be so fearful about the security process. Even if you have a legal issue, that's really not what they're looking for. If you tell your side of the story and you tell it well and you tell it first, you're going to be okay. They empathize with folks. They sympathize with folks. They understand that it can be a challenge, particularly in times like these. If you owe the government money, student loan, Uncle Sam, get on a payment plan and show that you're making progress. That's all they're looking for. They're not looking for perfection. So that's super important to understand. The other thing is that the package is very different. So a typical federal resume is on average 5 pages long, which is super different than a corporate resume. And it's not just that the resume is more lengthy. So you can't just take your corporate resume and double it, for example. What you have to do is dig deep into the skills that you utilized and the processes you engaged in when you were performing these accomplishments. And that's what the HR folks are looking for in the federal government. They're looking for how you actually perform the work. The accomplishments are the icing on the cake. So your federal resume is going to be super lengthy, and it's going to be a marriage between what they're looking for in terms of the skills you possess and the accomplishments you created, and the two of those together form the 5 to 7 page federal resume. So hopefully these are a couple tips that are helpful, and there's lots of information on my website. I will share that information in the chat room, in the chat box. I also have probably 35 videos, short little vignette videos on YouTube as well, and there's lots of information there. So hopefully this is helpful.
Thank you so much, Corliss.
Thank you.
So, so we had this one advanced question. I've actually never seen this before, and I'd really like to get Julien and Mike's opinion on this. So this person said, "Do you have an opinion on the use of paid referrals? In this case, candidates paying employees for extra consideration at highly desired companies." Now, I have absolutely heard, and we've all heard about the reverse, right? Where an employer will offer to pay what's called an employee referral for an employee who refers somebody in. But I've never heard this where a candidate would pay an employee to get extra consideration. Mike or Julien, have you ever heard of this?
No, but it sounds like a huge red flag to me.
Exactly. It sounds very unethical to me. I was just like, is this something I'm missing?
And I'm not a lawyer, but it probably has legal implications, especially if you're a publicly traded company.
Yeah, I would agree. Mike, have you heard of this?
I have not heard of this, and I completely agree with that assessment. Yeah.
Okay, so we're just gonna assume this should not be done, because I was a little surprised by it. Anyway, so let's jump into our chat room. So KiKi, would you like to lead us in our chat discussion?
Yeah, so we have our very first questions, and obviously group 3 was prolific in figuring out how to use their time because they have 2 questions to start. The first is just they're curious about personal branding and how that looks on LinkedIn and their resume. It's a very general question about how they're putting forth their personal branding on LinkedIn and on their resume.
Right. So actually, I have a whole presentation on this. So I'm not going to go do a whole power tip like KiKi and Corliss did, and actually Mike and Julien, you're certainly welcome to jump in here. One of the things that I talk about, and by the way, people say personal branding. Really, it's professional branding, okay? So we call it personal branding, but in the case of your career, you want to certainly make it professional. Not that your personal life can't have a place, but just to KiKi's point, sometimes things that are in your personal life are not necessarily relevant to your career brand. So I'm just going to treat this as a professional question. And I'm going to actually focus in on one particular aspect of your branding, and that's what I call the difference between your tribe and your lane. Those who've worked with me before know that I talk about this a lot, but I'm going to spend just a minute here, because when an employer is looking at you, they're trying to minimize their risk. And one of the ways that they do that is to figure out if you are a person who can, what I call, hit the ground flying. What does that mean? Can you do the job? And can you do it in a way with the kind of knowledge set that can solve the urgent problems of that company? Plus, do you play well in the sandbox, and are you a good culture fit? But the culture fit piece, it doesn't really show up as much, certainly in your resume. It can show up somewhat in your LinkedIn, but it certainly shows up in your interviews. But in terms of the can you do it and can you solve the urgent problems of that employer, these two concepts, tribe and lane, these are just my repurposed concepts, can be very, very helpful. Let me explain what I mean by that. So when I talk about a tribe, I define that as the industry, mission, or sector that you might happen to serve. I'll double back on that in a second. And then your lane is your occupation or your profession. Okay, so everybody has a lane, or maybe a highway of things you do. Maybe you have a current lane and you want to shift your lane. Maybe you've had a past lane and you shift meaning your lane is the thing you do. So you're an HR person, you're an accountant, you're a marketing professional, you're a project manager, what have you, okay? It's the thing you do. Whether it's what you do now, maybe you have an aspirational lane, you're trying to shift your lane, but it is what you do. The tribe is who you do it for. Now, not everybody has one tribe. Some of you are very cross-tribal. So maybe you are a marketing professional, you're cross-tribal, some might call you cross-sectoral, you work nonprofit, for-profit, matters not to you, that's fine. But a lot of you actually have a tribe. Your tribe, here are just several examples. So actually my tribe, KiKi's tribe, Michael Bouter's, a bunch of us, we're in the association tribe. We know associations. We know what keeps them up at night. We know the lingo. We have conversations amongst ourselves, and people who are outside of that tribe wouldn't understand what we're talking about. Commercial real estate is a tribe. The government is a tribe. The charitable nonprofit sector, financial services, we can go consumer packaged goods. I mean, we can go on and on. Now, yes, there are sub-tribes, or what I call villages, right? So let's say you're in the charitable nonprofit sector, but you specifically focus in on environmental nonprofits or humanitarian nonprofits or international NGOs. You get the picture. The point is that there can be tribes that you strongly identify with, that if you let your tribe shine, if you will, specifically on your LinkedIn, even on your resume, but especially on your LinkedIn, it gives employers that sense of comfort that you get them. You get what keeps them up at night. You understand the fundamental challenges that they are facing as an industry, if you will, a mission or a sector. And when you go ahead and align yourself, presuming it is a tribe that you want to continue to align yourself with, or even aspirationally, you've never been in that tribe, but you have this strong passion, you can use your LinkedIn profile, specifically your about section, it used to be called the summary section, to write a compelling narrative that says to the future employer, look, I've been researching, I get it, I'm passionate, this is what I want to do, this is who I want to do it for, and then people will feel more of a sense of connection with you, even credibility, particularly depending upon what kind of thought leadership you put out there on your LinkedIn, and you can use LinkedIn as your thought leadership. I have seen people do that a couple times on this call. I think I've mentioned that I once worked with, last year, worked with a young woman actually, and she was wanting to get into UX and UI design, so web design, but specifically she had this interest in web accessibility. So creating websites that are accessible for people with disabilities. And I suggested to her that she do an article, a blog post on LinkedIn on web accessibility, her passion for it. She did. It was a good, solid article. She got noticed, she got hired. Like, people noticed her because of her thought leadership. So that blogging ability on LinkedIn, which is on the second column of your homepage, there's a little button that says write an article. You open that up, put your picture in, put the headline, put the blog, publish it, and you can start creating a thought leadership for yourself around whatever it is, your tribe or your lane, the thing that you want to do. So that's my not so quick tip around that. So I don't know if Julien and Mike, if you have your own versions of that, of things that you think could be helpful for people to know about branding. We good? Okay. KiKi. Yeah. Oh, you're good. All right, KiKi. Any next question?
All right. Next question. Interview follow-up best practices. What are those best practices? What do we need to do?
Great. Julien or Mike, do you want to start with this?
Sure. So, so after the interview, you want to, hopefully you remember the individual names of everyone who interviewed you. So it is perfectly appropriate to send 3 separate thank you emails or letters to all 3 people that interviewed you, if there were 3. If you want to send 1, that's okay too. But if you send 3, you can personalize and kind of tailor your thank you letter to that person. So that can go over very well. Of course, you want to do this within 24 hours of the interview to show how interested you are. And then, well, those are probably the most important things right there. I'll just kind of leave it there and see if anyone else has something else to.
And by the way, no typos. Make sure that you have proofread those thank you emails up, down, backwards, and forwards. It's very easy to have a small typo when you're doing this quickly right after the interview. I have seen people lose opportunities because they had 1 typo on a thank you note. So just word to the wise.
I would just add quickly that on the thank you note, I would refer to the discussion that you had with the person during the interview and make sure they understand that you understand the position.
Yep. Great. Okay.
Shira, I have a little story about that. And I'm not sure if you know the statistics around how many people actually send thank you notes, but I think people don't do it enough. Right. You're a project, and your project isn't finished, and you don't have the bow on the gift until you have finished and written that thank you note. But I was working with an executive director in the federal agency, and we had 2 CIOs neck and neck. They were both very interested in both of them, and he asked me who sent the thank you note, and that person got the job offer.
Wow.
So it makes a difference.
Pretty powerful. Write those thank you notes.
All right, next question. How to structure an answer to the tell me about yourself interview question? Ooh, that's a good one.
It is a good one. And I think all of us recruiters here would have different answers. I'm going to toss it to my colleagues first. Julien or Mike, do you want to start with your definition of that?
So as a former recruiter, I'll say that this is one of our favorite questions. And the reason is it's very open-ended, and it tells a lot about the candidate as far as where they take this question. So recruiters like to use this so they can, again, just put it out there and see where the candidate takes it. As a candidate, you don't want to share personal things about your family and you grew up in this hometown and this many siblings. You want to keep everything very relevant to the job you're going for. So you might talk about your degree, you might talk about your certifications, and then you talk about your most recent job experience. And then you sum up everything with, and now I'd like to leverage these experiences to go into this position, which is the position you're applying for. So have a nice way of summing it up, but keep it all professional, just a nice kind of panoramic view of your professional experiences.
And actually, just my one-liner to put a bow on that, Mike, would be, all roads led me to this job. Like that, it's kind of like this pinnacle. You're telling a story that's leading right to the seat that you're sitting in for that role. So yeah, I agree with that. Julien?
No, I agree.
What'd you say?
He said he agrees.
Agree, okay. Good.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. All right, KiKi, next question.
All right. And this is another really great one. How to address the red flags that you may have found in your research about the organization. You've gone out, you've done your research, and you've discovered they have high turnover, poor Glassdoor reviews, something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Julien, do you want to take that one first?
Well, I mean, of course, it depends on the red flags. But if we take, if you find that there is a high turnover and poor, although Glassdoor review, I will tell you, I wouldn't put too much faith into it because people have a tendency to complain, but the people who are happy don't necessarily volunteer good things. But anyway, I would just go to the interview and wait to see if the employer actually addresses that, because they should know that. If they don't, there's nothing wrong with saying, look, I've seen this, what's going on exactly. Try to figure out, because you don't want to be associated with an organization that, there are organizations out there who are quite frankly desperate to find people, but they may not be the right place for you.
And to follow up on that, one of the ways you can get at those kinds of questions, maybe kind of from the side door. Let's just say it's a turnover issue. Like you've heard, there's a lot of turnover. One of the things you could say to the employer is, so ask the employer, describe your corporate culture, right? Maybe the corporate culture overall, the culture of this department, and just to see kind of how they describe it. What's funny is that people will reveal more than they want to reveal because body language says a lot, tone of voice says a lot. So for example, if you say describe your corporate culture, and if it's a really great corporate culture, man, oh man, that person is going to be jumping through, well, in this case, the Zoom call, or if you were in person, jumping out of their seat, oh, where's terrific, this, that, and the other. And I mean, they'll get happy, they'll get animated. If it's not so much, they will probably be measuring their words. Well, we've been working on our corporate culture. And then they might go aspirationally. Well, we're striving now to be more this or more that, or they might be very hedgy and wedgy about how they say things. So just kind of be listening for the cues. That's just kind of a way to go, kind of side door, just reframe it into something that's more kind of aspirational. So, Mike, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'll just say that overall, it's a good thing when you show that you've done your research, and it's perfectly appropriate to, say that I have this concern, or I read about this, or I saw this, especially if it's like a recurring theme in feedback on Glassdoor. I would bring that up just candidly in an interview as a candidate to ask them about that.
Great, thanks. KiKi?
All right. This is a fantastic question. I think something that a lot of people are probably wondering about. Would it be worth taking a rudimentary temporary job to solely lengthen the runway, quote unquote, particularly when it's rudimentary in nature and a few steps back? They're weighing the benefits of a paycheck now versus gaining certifications quicker.
This is a tricky one. So look, there's what I would say, there's what you need to do to earn a living, and then there's how you're branding yourself with what you're doing, okay? There are all kinds of things that people do to earn income, much of which we wouldn't necessarily put on our resume, right? We do. A lot of people have side gigs. People do all kinds of things. So from that perspective, do what you've got to do to put bread on the table, period end. That's my recommendation. As far as how you brand yourself with that, that's a different story. And by the way, it just occurred to me, the person said take a rudimentary job. I presume that they're talking about a W-2 job, not a side gig. That's where it gets a little bit trickier, because if you are actually taking that job and it is a W-2 job, technically one should put that on one's resume. And there's no easy way to really address this, because first of all, it's a very personal situation. If there is any way that you can find, if it is a rudimentary job, a lower level job that is within your lane or within your tribe, and you can frame it in a way that not misstate anything ever, but position it to show that you are still connected to that tribe. I have, I worked with somebody not that long ago who came from actually the association world and had to take a break for quite a while. When he got back in to that role, into the workforce, he took a very rudimentary job. But we were able to position it on his resume that showed that there was still a connection to the world that he used to come from. So it helped a little bit to draw it. Yes, you do need to think 2 or 3 times before you do it. But at the end of the day, yes, you got to put bread on the table. You just want to make sure that if you can, try to make sure that it's a job that's at least somewhat connected to what you do or what you want to do, so that you can continue that thread to sort of keep your brand a little bit more whole. That's my general advice. Julien?
Yeah, I would say, look at it also from the side of being able to do some internal networking and show the type of person that you are. And you may decide, actually, if you go to an organization you've never been to, even though it's a little bit lower, below your pay grade, so to speak, and you quickly, you think you admired them, and they're a great company, and then you get in and you see that the corporate culture is just not your fit, then you've answered your own question and you can just exit gracefully. On the other end, if it's, wow, this is great, I would love to work there. I've seen many instances, because I've been doing recruitment for a couple of decades, and I will tell you, it occurs pretty often that a person going into a role and then they ended up being hired for something totally different, because they realize, well, you're a perfect fit here and you have other skills, and that's great. Let's put you in there.
Yeah, it's a great point, Julien.
And that's a fact.
Thank you, Julien. Mike?
Yeah, I'll just say another perspective is, if you go and do a really good job at a particular role that may be a step down, also consider, will that manager recommend you? Does that manager have relationships where they can see clearly this is a high performer? They've done a lot for me, and now I'm going to help them. So they can become a real big advocate for you if you go take that role and do a really good job. But on the other side, I'm definitely an advocate for upskilling and getting as much certifications and education as you can during this time. So I'll just say that as well.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, KiKi.
All right, we have a question. This was aimed at Corliss, but I think it does ask the question of all of our recruiters. What happens about follow-up? So this says, Corliss, any thoughts? I've been referred since May on a COVID position with the CDC, email, phone call, but nothing but canned response. How often do we follow up? Do we follow up?
Yeah, so for the federal government, the answer is yes, you can follow up, but it's not going to move the process forward. In fact, the more you follow up, you're just kind of diverting their attention because they're working on things, and when they're ready to move forward, they will reach out to you. Now, having said that, you want to stay engaged, but I would focus more of my attention on actually applying to other positions, because again, you lead with your package in the federal government. So if you have a good package, apply to other positions, hopefully some other opportunities will come up, and you can pursue those, because having all your eggs in one basket is not a great thing, particularly in the federal field. So follow up once every 3 weeks maybe, but they're doing something and they're trying to figure something out, and you're calling them or emailing them is not going to shift that, if that makes sense. It'll make you feel better, but not necessarily make them move faster.
I would agree with that in the private sector as well. No one ever wants you to feel like you're being kind of nudgy. They've got a lot of priorities on their desk. Recruiting is usually the bottom of their list in the course of their day. It's something that they don't want to do necessarily, but they kind of have to. That said, if you haven't heard in, let's say the recruiter says, hey, I anticipate, by the way, at the end of your interview, you should be asking the recruiter, what's the next step? What should I anticipate? And they say, well, we should be getting back to you in a couple of weeks with something. 2 weeks go by. I would wait another several days to even a week, and then maybe one ping just to reiterate your interest very kindly. And if there's any follow-up they have, great. That's it. because at the end of the day, again, they have a lot of priorities, and you want to be seen as in other words, if they want you, they will come find you. In fact, they will go to the ends of the earth to find you if you are their candidate, even if it's weeks beyond what they told you the timing was, because in the mind of most employers, they think, erroneously, but they think that most candidates are waiting there by the phone for their call. And that's not necessarily the case, because you're off and looking for other jobs, but they feel like they can have access to you. So they will find you if you are the right candidate. Julien or Mike, any other thoughts on that? Good? We're good. Thumbs up. All right. All right. So it is 10:01. If we had maybe one more small question, KiKi, we're happy to address it before we go into the networking.
Well, I think this one's an easy one. So, this person's communicate with HR, but they don't have the email addresses for the interviewers. How do you send these thank you notes when you don't have the actual email addresses?
First of all, I would just ask the HR person, hey, I would like to send a thank you note to these people. May I have their addresses? 9 times out of 10, they'll say that's perfectly fine, and they'll give them, or maybe they'll say no, but they'll say, you're welcome to send the HR person might say, you're welcome to send those notes through me, meaning through them. So that's how I would address that. Julien or Mike, any other thoughts?
The hardest part of that is just remembering their names. So if in an interview you're focused on everything else, and a lot of times it's easy to not remember the names of those who interviewed you. So remembering their names, writing them down during the interview if you have to, will help a lot.
Great. Thank you. All right, so that's the time we have for the open Q&A piece. I'm going to just do a couple more wrap-up slides before we go into the speed networking. So if you'd like to connect with any one of us, here's our contact information. Feel free to take a picture here. For the registration, if you'd like to forward our meetup to other people, right here, there's a registration link in Meetup. If you'd like the past recording, in the green box, you'll find that. And I actually put in the earlier chat box, right at the top of your chat box, I put in there both this recording link as well as the speed networking link as well. And for those of you who don't know, if you'd like to save the chat thread, you can certainly do that by going at the bottom of your chat thread, in the bottom right, that there's 3 little dots, and if you click on that, it'll say save chat, so you can save that right now if you want. I do want to let you guys know about other job support groups here in the area that are all online now. Here are the list of them, and tomorrow I happen to be doing an advanced LinkedIn training for career confidence. That's going to be in the green, and I actually put the link in here. In fact, let me just put that also in the chat, because it might be a little hard to grab, and because that particular website is might be hard to find it. So I'll just say Shira training on LinkedIn, and this is going to be tomorrow on Saturday from 9 to 12. Okay. And then I always like to end, with a word of encouragement from the scriptures. So I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. So I just encourage you all, as you are in your job search, to look to the Lord, to trust in Him for faith in your job search. So as we go into speed networking, I'll let you guys know.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Did you ever put that link for the spreadsheet in there?
I did, yes. It's actually at the top of the chat box. It says power networking spreadsheet. It's you should see it. It's from me, and it's right near the top. So if you save your chat, you'll see it.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Okay, I'm happy to put that in there again.
Thank you.
Yep, for sure. And let me just grab this here. Okay, so it's in your chat right now. All right, and so for the speed networking, the way that this works is you're going to have 15 minutes, and you'll be in groups of 4 or 5 or 6. You'll have a couple of minutes to introduce yourself. So go around the room, share with people your current or aspiring career field, aka your lane. If you have an industry or sectoral affiliation, your tribe. And what a great connection is for you. What kind of lead you're looking for, and you never know. Could be somebody right there in that room who will be a good connection for you. They might know of somebody, and please feel free to use the spreadsheet to put your email address, or you can certainly put it in the chat box for folks. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and get your breakout rooms going again, so give me a moment here. All right, and at the end of your networking, we'll all come back to the main room. If you want to share any last thoughts, we can certainly do that. Okay, here you go. Make sure to hit the join button.
By Charles Schulz made its first appearance in newspapers. So Charlie Brown and the Peanuts gang, I guess they're all 70 years old. They look good for 70. Although Charlie Brown has been bald his whole life. I don't know if that's an exciting.
So Kimberly, KiKi, are you aware that there's at 8:30 every morning now, there's this association coffee chat thing going on? Have you heard of this? Oh, you're on mute.
Are you talking about the ones with Nicole?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they've been going on for a long time.
Yeah. Have you been a part of it?
No, I almost joined one of them, but then I didn't end up doing it. Usually at 8:30, I'm rushing around to get other stuff done.
Yeah. I've done a couple, and it's really funny. I didn't even know that. How I even found out was actually through this group, because Kimberly Berry, who's on the call, she's in the tribe, and so in one of these speed networking rooms, she met this one with a woman. I went into one of these networking rooms and I met this woman named Tip, who's in the tribe. I connected Tip and Kimberly after the meeting. They had an offline, and then Tip told Kimberly about that chat, and now Kimberly
oh my gosh,
involved every morning. And she said, it's been such an inspiration for her, because she lives alone and she likes the community. And so isn't it interesting, that's just the power of networking?
It is really beautiful. I mean, I think that it's so nice that just one conversation with the right person, and you end up being connected in ways that you never would have otherwise. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Actually, yesterday, so interesting, if you have any tips. So Cynthia Woodruff, I'm not sure if you know her.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So Cynthia, she has this very unusual problem. So she's with the Art Therapy Association.
Yes.
And one of her donors every year donates a big something, like paintbrushes or something, right? Well, this year, this donor donated watercolor paper. Okay, so paper that's just good for watercolor.
Mm-hmm.
The donor ordered it through China.
Mm-hmm.
Well, something got messed up with the order, and instead of getting something like 10 cases, they got 2 shipping containers. Right. Right. And so they're sitting in Connecticut, and Cynthia's like, how do I get rid of all this? And so on the call yesterday, everybody, because you know how we are in our tribe, the association of this and that and the other, because we know the people who know the people. And everybody was just like peppering with, maybe this, and call the, very special arts and this community and that, like PTA and all this. Can you imagine trying to get
I'm glad it's not my problem. Yeah. I mean, that's what a weird problem to have. Yeah.
Oh, I know. And it's because, of course, they have no room, right, to host anything.
What would you do with all of that?
What do you do with all that? And so because it's in Connecticut, then some people were saying, let's, go to Connecticut, like their PTA or their whatever, see if they can kind of get it distributed locally. But isn't that something?
Yeah, it's so strange. That's funny. I'll solve another problem. I can't. My mind is just not going there. So, but wow.
Yeah, I
know. Well, this was fun.
Yeah. How are things going with Techer?
Oh, good. Things are going well. Actually, yesterday and today, we have the CEO symposium, and I actually think that when it comes to that stuff, that that's where I fit in really well, because it's that little bit of training, you know, like I come in and I talk about building trust in teams or something like that, which is what I did yesterday. And that is great. Like that all works really well. Identifying how my particular skills fit in with what they're known for projects is not as easy to do. So.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because they've been seeing you, I mean, they brought you on as the social media strategy queen, right?
They're not really. I mean, like that's what I am, but you know, it's more. So I came in January, and really, it's fitting me into the stuff that they get hired to do. So like right now, we have a project that I have a couple of clients I'm working on with them, and you know, the best that I can do for them is, and